Welcome to the Foundry by Forge College. I'm your host, and today we're jumping right into roles and trust networks in recovery. This is actually part of our Introduction to Social Recovery Patterns, which sits inside the broader Social Recovery Patterns and Gas Abstraction module, all part of the Wallets, Account Abstraction, and Key Management track. Whew, that's a mouthful. But basically, if you've ever locked your keys in a running car, you know that sheer, unadulterated panic. Well, in Web3, losing your private keys doesn't just ruin your afternoon, it can literally lock away your digital life forever. That's where social recovery comes in, your personal, pre-planned squad of digital locksmiths ready to save the day. Let's get into it.
Building on our last lesson where we covered understanding social recovery mechanisms, here is our agenda for today's explainer. We'll assemble the recovery crew, meet your guardians, look at the recovery coordinator, map out the rescue blueprint, and finally dive into trade-offs and tuning.
All right, Section 1, the recovery crew. Let's assemble our team.
So, you gotta ask yourself, who actually rescues your lost keys? Because when disaster strikes, you can't just pick up the phone, call customer service, and ask to speak to the CEO of the blockchain, right? You need a trustworthy, decentralized network with crystal-clear roles ready to save the day without a single hitch. Everyone needs to know their exact job before the alarm bells even ring. Think of this like your engineering spec sheet. We've got 4 main roles here. First up, the owner. That's you. You initiate the recovery and, crucially, hold the ultimate veto power. Then we have the guardians, the folks who actually approve your recovery requests. Next is the coordinator, this unbiased entity enforcing the rules, thresholds, and time locks. And finally, the verifiers, who provide external attestations. Breaking it down like this means zero ambiguity during a live recovery event.
Moving right along to Section 2, meet your guardians. When you're picking your guardians, you're looking at a pretty stark contrast. On one side, you have social guardians, your friends and family. Tons of empathy, for sure, but lower verifiability. I mean, they know who you are, but the blockchain definitely doesn't. On the flip side, you have institutional guardians, like custodial services. You're basically trading out your well-meaning, maybe occasionally flaky best friend for a rigid, highly secure institution that offers high assurance, but brings some centralization into the mix.
The big takeaway here? You absolutely have to choose your rescue crew based on your own specific threat model. Are we talking about guarding $10 for a cup of coffee or $10 million in corporate treasury funds? As you're designing your personal network, keep in mind that mastering these exact trade-offs is a huge focus in our Forge College courses. There's just no one-size-fits-all answer here. It is all about your personal security needs.
Next up is Section 3, the recovery coordinator. This is the strict enforcer of our whole operation.
You can think of the coordinator as your mission control computer. It's essentially this unbiased smart contract or rule set that blindly but securely enforces the rules so literally nobody can cheat the system. It safely stores your list of guardians, does the math to make sure a quorum threshold is met, manages waiting periods, and validates all the cryptographic signatures. It has zero empathy and takes zero bribes. It just executes the unchangeable rules you set up in advance.
All right, Section 4, the rescue blueprint. Let's see how all this machinery actually operates when you push the panic button.
Drawn out step by step, we have a precise 5-step workflow from the second the alarm is pulled. Step 1, incident declaration. Step 2, notification and attestations. This is where your guardians get pinged. Step 3, guardian approvals, where they mathematically sign off. Step 4 is the time lock and owner veto window. And finally, Step 5, execution and audit. It is a beautiful, highly predictable pipeline.
I really want to pause and highlight Step 4 because it introduces the time lock. A time lock is a mandatory waiting period that only triggers after the guardian threshold is met. It's basically a built-in emergency brake. It gives the original owner a guaranteed window of time to veto a fraudulent recovery attempt. It is literally the ultimate friction surface to stop a rogue crew from executing a false recovery attempt and running off with your digital assets.
And this timeline brilliantly illustrates exactly why that time lock is absolutely crucial. At minute 0, the threshold is met by your guardians. Then, boom, we enter a mandatory waiting period, which, could be a few hours or several days, depending on how you tuned your settings. Finally, at the end of the window, we have execution or veto. It gives the true owner a specific block of time to stop a heist before the final execution goes through. Let's move to our final section, Section 5, Trade-offs and Tuning. Let's see how this builds into practical application. The fundamental question you've got to ask yourself here is speed versus security.
Every single decision you make, whether that's adding verifiers or changing the number of required approvals, is a direct trade-off between recovery speed and resistance to collusion. Do you want lightning-fast recovery, or do you want maximum, impenetrable security?
Take a look at this. Let's say you require 3 out of 5 guardians to approve a recovery. Okay, that reduces friction. You'll only need to track down 3 people to get your funds back. But it also means a coordinated attacker also only needs to compromise those same 3 people to breach your wallet. So it's a super delicate balance. Lower thresholds mean much faster access, but higher vulnerability. By treating these factors as adjustable tuning knobs, you can model some amazing attack and recovery scenarios. You can tweak your threshold size, your guardian diversity, or your time lock length. You can even use weighted approvals, like, say, giving an institutional guardian a heavier voting weight to balance out the speed of social approvals. So maybe your bank's signature counts as 3 votes, while your buddy's signature only counts as 1. You are essentially programming your own custom security physics. How cool is that? But now that our crew is assembled, the blueprint is drawn, and we know how to tune our security knobs, we're left with a really critical question about verifying true identities. How do we actually prove these actors are exactly who they say they are during the absolute chaos of a recovery? Well, that exact question leads perfectly into our next explainer, where we'll dive headfirst into identity verification and security risks. Because at the end of the day, a trust network is really only as secure as its ability to verify the actual humans sitting behind those screens.
Thank you so much for exploring this mission blueprint with me. Please be sure to visit forge.college to learn more about this subject, dive deeper into the mechanics of smart accounts, and discover a bunch of other incredible Web3 topics in our ecosystem. But before you go, ask yourself this. If you lost everything today, who is holding your digital safety net, and do you truly trust them not to cut the ropes? Keep your networks trusted, keep your keys safe, and I will see you in the next explainer.